AI is everywhere, right? It's changing, well, everything. But as it weaves its way into our jobs, it's kicking up this huge storm of questions. Who's in control? What are the risks? Who's responsible? It's a lot. So today, we're going to cut right through all that noise and give you a simple, clear playbook. Let's get into it.
Okay, let me ask you something right off the bat. Your company is using AI, or it's about to. But who's actually in charge of the rules? I mean, everyone gets excited about what AI can do, but who's deciding what it shouldn't do? And when something inevitably goes wrong, who's on the hook? If you don't have a solid answer for that, you're basically flying blind.
And that's exactly where this playbook comes in handy. We're going to break down the official ISACA framework for AI. Think of it as this big, comprehensive guide, and we're going to transform it into a clear, actionable roadmap you can actually use.
All right, so where do we start? Well, like any big project, you've got to have a solid foundation, right? For AI, that foundation is all about governance. Before anyone writes a single line of code, before you even think about deploying a model, you have to set the rules of the game. I love this metaphor. Think of it like building a house. You would never just start throwing up walls without an architect's plan, would you? Of course not. So this first part is all about creating that blueprint. This means putting together something like an AI steering committee, a group that actually owns the strategy, and drawing some really clear lines in the sand about what's okay and what's not, for everyone. So what does a good AI policy actually look like in practice? Well, it really just boils down to 4 key things. First up, you've got to define your vision. Why are we even doing this? What's the goal? Second, you need to establish acceptable use. What are the hard and fast do's and don'ts? Third, assign roles and responsibilities. We need to know who's doing what. And finally, number 4, you have to mandate audits and traceability. You got to be able to check your work and prove you're doing what you said you would. Now, when we talk about AI ethics, it's easy for that to sound kind of vague, right? But it's not one single thing. It's a balancing act between these really specific, super important pieces. You've got to work hard to make sure your AI is fair and unbiased. I mean, think about it. A biased hiring tool doesn't just ruin someone's career, it hurts your entire company. You also need transparency. Can you explain why the AI made a certain decision? And then there's trust, safety, IP rights, human rights. Getting this balance right isn't just some feel-good ethical exercise, it is absolutely good business. Okay, so we've got our blueprint. The foundation is set. What's next? Well, now we have to survey the land. This part is all about getting a clear picture of the risks and the opportunities that come along with using AI.
Let's stick with that building metaphor for a minute. This is like the geological survey. Before you pour the foundation, you need to know if you're building on solid rock or a hidden swamp, right? For AI, that means analyzing the threat landscape. We're talking everything from technical hacks to just plain old misuse. The whole point is to design your systems to be tough and resilient right from the very beginning.
And the good news is, you're not out there on your own trying to figure this all out from scratch. There are some really solid frameworks to help you, but you've got to know the difference between them. For example, you have the NIST framework in the US, which is basically voluntary guidance. Think of it as a book of best practices. Then you have the EU AI Act, which is a whole different ballgame. That's actual law, with mandatory, legally binding requirements, especially for AI systems that are considered high risk.
So let's say you've identified a risk. Now what? What do you do about it? You've basically got 4 main strategies. 1, you can just accept it, know it's there and move forward. 2, you can avoid it, just don't do the thing that causes the risk. 3, you can mitigate it, which means putting controls in place to make it less likely or less damaging. Or 4, you can transfer it or share it by pushing that risk onto a third party, like your cloud provider or an insurance company. The most important thing here, you have to make a conscious choice. Don't just let things happen by accident.
All right, we've got our plan. We've surveyed the landscape. Now it's time to actually build something. This last pillar is all about the nitty-gritty, the tools, the tech, and the controls you're going to need to build and run your AI safely and, effectively. So this is where we finally get to grab the toolkit. We're talking about the real, practical stuff. It means picking the right AI models for the job, making sure your data is handled securely from start to finish, and putting in those specific security systems to protect the whole thing from the inside out. An AI model isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing. It has a whole life cycle with 7 different stages. It starts with planning and design, then collecting and processing data. Then you build it, you test and validate it, and then you deploy it out into the world. But it doesn't stop there. You have to operate and monitor it, watching for things like model drift, which is just a fancy way of saying its performance gets worse over time. And finally, you have to retire it securely. And guess what? Every single one of those phases needs its own set of controls.
Okay, if there's one control you really need to know from your toolkit, it's this one, Human in the Loop, or HITL. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a formal process that makes sure a real, live human being has the final say, especially when the stakes are high. It's all about using the incredible power of AI without giving up our human responsibility.
I love this quote because it just says it all so perfectly. The machine suggests, the human decides. That right there, that's the core philosophy. That's what responsible AI is all about. The tech can be an amazing advisor, maybe even a co-pilot, but a person has to have their hands on the controls for the final call, always.
So, we've walked through governance, we've looked at risk, and we've touched on the technology. What does this all boil down to? Let's wrap it all up and put it together into your final, actionable playbook.
Okay, here it is, your 3-step playbook for mastering AI. It's simple. Number 1, set the rules. Get that governance policy and ethics foundation rock solid. Number 2, manage the risk. That means identifying threats and having a plan to deal with them. And number 3, master the tech. You've got to understand the AI lifecycle and use the right controls. That's it. That's your path from feeling uncertain to leading with confidence.
So, we've broken down the framework, we've laid out the steps, the playbook is right here, and the path forward is clear. So really, there's only one question left. You've got the playbook now. So, are you ready to lead the change?